Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to our family service this morning. Anybody who's watching online or visitors, then a warm welcome to you. We look forward to hopefully you enjoy what we've got for you this morning. Just a few notices just to highlight. So there will be tea and coffee after service and biscuits, so please feel free to hang around and chat and enjoy some refreshments. This evening we've got Reverend Paul Smith is coming to speak to us. That's here at 6:30. So I think this is the first time that he's been up here to speak, so it'd be good to see many people. And I think he's looking forward to meeting everyone as well. So if you're here for that, that would be good. And then the other one, just to highlight again, is, so on the notices, it says about sort of the Sunday the 20th of August. We're having the morning service can be slightly different, where it's going to be sort of for all the family. But as a church, we want to sort of think about the vision, or our vision as a church, what we're trying to do in our community, in the areas where we live. So we just want to have a bit of a sort of a more relaxed sort of session, but just thinking about how we can, or what we should be doing as a church, and how that looks. And then we're going to follow that up in a month's time. Paul Smith is coming back on Friday the 22nd of September for a pudding and purpose evening. So if you're not sure what the purpose is, then come for the pudding and you'll find out. But again, that's just to sort of follow on and to sort of help us sort of see where we should be going, what we should be doing here in sort of the area where we are here in Mid-Devon. So I think that's the notices. Let's just open in prayer. Dear Lord, we just thank you that we can come and join together this morning. Thank you that we can come and worship you, Lord, and give praise to you. We just pray for those who've not been able to join us, that you'll be with them wherever they are as well this morning, Lord. Open our hearts to what the message that you're going to bring to us this morning, Lord. Amen. Okay, we are going to start by singing My Lighthouse. And Charlotte, have you been able to convince any friends to come and join you at the front doing some actions? They don't want to do it. Well, if anybody else wants to come and do actions to My Lighthouse, you're welcome to come up the front or do it in your seats where you are. But let's stand and sing.
Peace
Okay, so we're very pleased that we've got Rob Govier, for those who don't know, Steve and Linda's son, who's travelled all the way down from Leeds, not just for this service, so we don't have to pay his expenses. But yeah, he's going to come and talk to us later. He is meant to be doing a little introduction of himself here, but unfortunately he's almost lost his voice, so he's saving it for the important parts of the service. Yeah, he's left it to me to give a little brief update about him, which I think was probably dangerous. Yeah, so anyway, Rob's come, and Laura and Daniel and Sophie, nice to see you down in Devon again. So Rob used to come to this church a long, long time ago, before he headed up north. He's used to play the drums, better than I did, to be fair, so... used to be heavily involved in that, and now involved in a church up near Leeds, where they live. So he's going to be talking a little bit about, so we've got some sheep hurdles in here, and everyone's been commenting, Steve, how clean these look. So Steve's been out polishing them all week, I think, ready to bring them in. I'm just going to do a read from the Bible, so from Luke chapter 15, just to sort of on the parable of the lost sheep, explain about what we're going to talk about this morning. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering round to hear him, but the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. "Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent." We're going to be thinking a little bit about that as we go through the service. So to start with, we got a little activity. So we need four volunteers. But we'd like 2 adults and 2 children, please. Yeah. So so 2 children. Is there any children who'd like to come up? All you have to do is just try and unwrap a present. Okay. I don't know how good the present is, but is anybody willing to come up and give a go at unwrapping a present? No one's looking very keen, are they? Daniel, you going to come? Okay. Oh, come on up. Right, and then, so 2 adults. So a little birdie tells me that, Daniel, it's your birthday today. So what better way to come up the front and unwrap a present at the front of church? And any other adults willing to put your hands up to come up the front?
I didn't put my hand up just for the record.
Peter. Well, it's a little bit harsh to nominate people. Ed, you can come up. Right, so we got 4 presents here.
One is over there. You can have that one, but you're going to have to put these big hands on. Okay, so I'll help you put those on in a minute. Daniel, you can put that one, you don't need anything. And Ed, you're going to use his bag card.
So in a minute, we've got 30. They're going to have 30 seconds to open the present. Okay. So once we're all set, so we're all ready. So little Daniel here, he's got some. Show him your England hands.
Put your hands up.
So have 5 minutes.
Okay. So I haven't got time. We'll have to count. So on your marks, you just got to open the present as quick as you can. Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. Are you getting on their head? Doing well?
So you're not in the present.
Oh, right.
They're all these sides.
Oh, okay, I thought
Is yours a bit tougher, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, 30 seconds.
Oh, there we go. Hopefully that one's in.
Yes, you got in, well done.
if that work goes on another imposter, I could be clapping.
There we go. We've had 30 seconds, so you can, yeah, you can take it with you. There is a present in it. I promise. I tried to only kill that one. It might take you the rest of the service.
Yeah, right.
So as Stu said, my name is Rob. When I spoke to Stu on Wednesday, I said, all you have to do is say hello at the start and goodbye at the end. And then I texted him yesterday to say, I haven't got a voice. You might have to do a little bit more. So Stu's doing something again a bit later. I've even roped Cheryl in to do the prayers because I don't know how my voice will go. The good news is it's better than it was yesterday. Well, I say that for me. It might be worse for you because you actually have to listen to me for a bit longer. But yes, it's a family service today, so hopefully there'll be something in it for everybody. It might not all be for you, but hopefully there'll be something for everybody, if that's the songs, if it's the prayers, activities, or the talks. We've got a couple of talks, hopefully a bit of testimony, and another activity a bit later on. But as the reading suggested, we're looking at the parable of the lost sheep. And you might wonder what on earth that activity had to do with the parable of the lost sheep. But I think to understand that, hopefully, we need to go back and look at the passage in the cultural context that it was written and when it was actually spoken. So in verse 1 of that passage, we read that a number of tax collectors and sinners were gathering around to listen to Jesus. Now, at that time, the tax collectors, possibly as they are today, were despised by pretty much everybody. And sinners were not a particularly well-liked group of people, especially by the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. So they were not people to associate yourself with. So Jesus would have been expected to be with the religious leaders and the teachers of the law, not the sinners and the tax collectors. But as we know as we read through the Bible, Jesus was a pretty radical character. And he not only spent time with sinners, but as we read in verse 2, much to the disgust of the Pharisees, he actually would go to their house and he would eat with them. Now at that time, that was a pretty huge deal. That was a really big thing that Jesus was doing. As a really, really high-level summary, there are many warnings in the Bible around our social relationships, and not to get too caught up in those to the point that we go along with them and then go against God. So to ensure that we didn't do that, and that people weren't doing that, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law kind of created a subset of rules, a layer underneath those rules, to prevent you breaking the main one of going against God. And one of those sub-rules was that in order to not get caught up in a sinful relationship, you didn't spend time with, and you certainly didn't eat with, sinners. And if you did eat with sinners, that would make you unclean. And if you were unclean, you were seen as unfit to go and worship God, and were unable to take part in certain worship ceremonies for a particular period of time. So although those rules were well-meaning, because they were trying to stop you going against God, there was the worry that that could become quite a closed shop, in that the only people who could actually hear about Jesus, or about God, at that time, were the ones who already knew about him. They were the ones who already were seen as trying to live a life worthy of him. But when Jesus came, he came to meet those who didn't know him, and that didn't know God. And by obeying that set of rules that the Pharisees had put in place, it was really hard to reach the people that needed Jesus the most. The people who were seen as unclean, those who were seen as unworthy of God's love, were those that Jesus needed to meet and to transform. Jesus came to earth to say that God's love extends to everybody. It doesn't matter about our social status, our race, our nationality, our age. Everyone is loved by God. So to reach these people, Jesus had to break down certain barriers that had been put in place, and he had to meet and eat and speak and share and teach the people who didn't know him, so that they could get to know him, and then their lives would be saved and transformed. As we saw with unwrapping that parcel, that can be quite difficult. A really simple task of unwrapping a present can be really difficult when there are certain barriers put in place. And the message about sharing about Jesus is the same today as it was then. The good news that we have about Jesus needs to be shared with everyone. It's all well and good me standing here today speaking to you here, but if we never share that outside of these walls, there's not a lot of point in doing it, because people who don't know about Jesus will not come to hear about him. And that can sometimes be really hard. Sometimes there are barriers that are put in place that stop us from doing that. One of it might be that we're just a bit worried that the person we say about him to might think less of us, or might take the mickey out of us, or just think that we're a bit crazy. Maybe we just don't want to start an awkward conversation and bring that God stuff into it because it's a bit complicated. Maybe we're just way out of our comfort zone talking about God and we don't want to do it to people. Or maybe we're worried that a really theological question will be asked and we just won't know the answer, so it's best not to go there. But sharing the good news of Jesus is far more than just preaching or being a good Christian apologetic. Jesus transforms our lives from the inside outwards. When Jesus impacts our lives, we begin to change the way that we live. And people may then ask us why. And if they do, we need to say why. We see numerous examples of that through the New Testament, through healings, or with tax collectors when they stop overcharging people and pay people back what they were owed. And they tell people why they are doing it. So when people notice a difference in our lives or a change in our behaviour, we need to tell people why we're doing it. Our job isn't to convert people. Our job is to sow seeds, and then we let Jesus come in and do all the hard work. We're going to think about that a little bit more later this morning. We're going to pray about it as well, about what some of those barriers might be in our lives that are stopping us talking about Jesus. And we're going to ask him to come in and try and break them down. But at the moment, we're going to sing again in a minute, a song that it all talks about breaking down those barriers. So Claire, could you lead to the next song, please? Thank you.
King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was
Right, we've got another activity now. This is going to involve everybody, though. I was going to read out the bits in a minute, but Stu's going to take over that job. Rupert, could we have the slides up, please? While we're doing that, could somebody perhaps distribute some of these around? Kind of groups of 3 or 4 in your row. We're going to play a game called The Price is Right. I'm sure most of us remember that. It's a very simple concept. You're going to see 8 different things, and you're going to have to value them as to which you think is the most expensive and which you think is the least expensive. There's a piece of paper coming around with them all on. We'll put them through the slides, and then we've got a few additional facts, just so you can't say I don't give you all the information required. So the first one, please, Roo. The first one is the average price of a terraced house in Crediton. That is Crediton, Devon, nowhere else. The average price for a terraced house in Crediton. The next one. That vase. It's a bit blurred, but it's a vase. Next one, please. To employ that person for 1 week. That is in his current role, not in what you might wish to employ him in. Next one, Roo. An Aston Martin DBS Coupe. Look at that, what a car that is. One of those. The next one. That Ram. I can't read it from there. Devon Vale Perfection. There you go. I'll let you farmers judge whether you think that's perfection or not. And the next one. A bottle of wine. If anyone can read French, you can tell me how to pronounce that bottle of wine, but it looks like it's Jeroboam Chateau Mokata Rochefald. There you go, a bottle of that. 1945. And the last one, I think, is that pair of shoes. So the idea is, which do you think is most expensive? There's one more. So one more. Oh, sorry, there is a watch. There you go, a Rolex watch. Have you got a piece of this as well? Probably not, actually. I'll pick a couple. Sorry, that is whole. Yeah, so let's go straight into the talk.
So once you... Just if you wanted any more information on any of them, the Ram, the Verdendale, whatever it's called, that was the world record price up until August 2020. It's not the new one. I couldn't do the new one because I heard that the Webbers at Stockham were part of the consortium that bought it. So I had to go with the one before to not be unfair. The bottle of wine was actually sold in dollars. I used the $1 to 74 pence conversion rate. And according to some websites, it's the 3rd or 4th most expensive bottle of wine. The shoes, they were made by the co-founder of Nike in 1960. Phil Foden was the footballer, plays for England and Man City, and it's his wage per week, not including performance bonuses, and his pre-tax. And the vase has some big words in it. It's not of the main dynasty at the time. It's actually of the Qing dynasty, and it includes the 15% buyer's premium. And the house price was according to Rightmove 2022. Average price in 2022 according to Rightmove. I'm just giving you clues. Terrace house, just the average price of a terrace house in Crediton. Could be 2 bedrooms, yeah.
Right, how are we all getting on? Are we all about there? God, it's like trying to get order in a school classroom, this, isn't it? Knowing that the teacher can't shout. Clap. Oh, do the thing they do at school. There we go. Right, Rue, can we go to the next slide, please? And that was a picture of all of them. And then the next one, I didn't change the car actually. These are the answers. So, what did we think before we show the answers? What do we think was the most expensive? Shout some out that you think was most expensive. The vase. Footballer, shoes. Anyone else? What about this part of the room? I've not heard much from here. Footballer, can't. Right. Go on then, Rue, put the answer up. There you go. They were all worth £230,000. So they were all worth to within 4%, because it's very hard to find things worth exactly £230,000. But within 4%, they were all sold or are all worth £230,000. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I put that together, I spent a lot of time doing it, because A, I found it fun, B, I found it quite staggering, and 3, I couldn't quite believe how much certain things were worth. And I would guess that everyone in this room, even by those answers, is saying that we would attribute very different values to what those are. That's due to our personal preference or our interest or what we have or what we might like. So I'm fortunate enough to have a house, so I don't need a house in Crediton. But if I did have £230,000, I would love an Aston Martin DBS Coupe. I think that would be a wonderful way to spend my money. But I wouldn't pay 23 quid for that vase, and you'd have to pay me at least £2.30 to have the shoes, because I can't see the point of them, and I just think that it's a complete waste of money. But I find that value is a really interesting concept. So I trained as a rural surveyor, and one of the hardest areas to show that you're competent in is value, because it's really scientific. Like, valuation is very scientific. There are many methods of doing it, and it's a real area you can get tripped up on in all the various legislation and everything else. But at its really simplest form, valuation is really, really simple, because the value of something is what someone is willing to pay for it. That's the really simple basis of what value is. So although we all attribute very different values to those things that we saw, when they go to the right person, they are all worth the same, and they all have the same value. And to God, we are all worth the same. Verse 4 of that passage we read today tells us that if he loses one of us, he will leave the 99 and go and look for the one. To God, each and every one of us is as valuable as anyone else. And the price he was willing to pay was his son. So things like our education or our employment, our earthly wealth, culture, skin colour, family life, our history, sporting affiliation, if you think Alex Carey was in the right in the Ashes, it doesn't matter to God, because we are all worth the same. We are all equally valuable to him. So to finish today, I can't talk about the parable of the lost sheep without sharing a part of my testimony. Now, I know some of you would have heard this before, so apologies if I'm going back over old ground, but it does demonstrate the parable better than I could otherwise articulate. So as Stu mentioned in the intro I was going to do, I was brought up in a Christian home, attended this church for many years, made an original commitment to Christ around 11 or 12 at boys' camp, actually, which is happening this week. And that was kind of whatever that meant to me as an 11 or 12-year-old at the time. Kind of through secondary school and through college, it wasn't really the cool thing to do to be a Christian. It kind of started to wane, started to have a bit of a two kind of lives. I had the life when I wasn't at church, the life when I was at church. And by the time I got to uni, I kind of thought it was all a load of rubbish. I didn't really see any evidence for it. I didn't really feel it. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew is it kind of put a lot of rules in my life that I didn't necessarily want to abide by. So while I was at uni, I was a typical student, you could say. I'd do anything for a laugh. I was quite a party going. I lived with pretty much no consideration for anyone but me and had a really good time doing it. But people and God hadn't given up on me. So my third year at university, I went to Lancaster on a placement. So it was a placement year, kind of working in the industry. And for a very quick lesson, if you don't know where Lancaster is, Devon's here, Lancaster's up here, just down from Carlisle, so quite close to Scotland. So a long way from Devon. And at the time, I had a girlfriend in Cheshire, so most weekends I'd go down there. It was only about an hour and a half down to her house. So I went down there. So when I was in Lancaster, I lived in a box room of a shared house. They were all out quite often. So I was quite bored and quite lonely. and I also have the attention span of a gnat. So the odd weekend I did have to stay in Lancaster, somebody who actually at that time attended this church had compiled me a list of churches in Lancaster that I should try to go to, which I was a little bit annoyed about because I didn't want to go to church. But I thought if I go to one, I can sit at the back, turn up kind of as it starts, leave as it finishes, say nobody spoke to me, walk out, never have to go back, done that, tick, move on. But I went to a particular church and over kind of 2 or 3 weekends, over say a month or so. And on each occasion, a different person spoke to me. Just one person most times because they stayed talking to me, which was a little bit annoying. And then they all invited me to their small group, which was even more annoying. And then I think the third one took me to get a cup of coffee, like after the service, it was just tea or coffee, and took me there and then left me in the queue, and the person serving coffee annoyingly spoke to me. And then all 3 of them kind of saw they were talking, and it turned out that they were all in the same small group. So they had all asked me to their small group. I'd said no individually to all of them, but it turned out that the only 3 people who had spoken to me were all part of the same small group. So then they all asked me again and said that because I was young, they'd feed me. And it's very hard to turn down free food. So I was, what was I in my third year, 20, 21, something like that. And that small group was made up of exclusively medical people. They were all GPs or surgeons or nurses, or they were retired medical people. And they were all mid-30s to mid-60s. They all had kind of either grown up or young children at the time, and I was just a 21-year-old student. We didn't really have a lot in common at all. But they welcomed me in, and they adopted me while I was up there, really. And that was my church. So I didn't go to the church on a Sunday because I was still going down to Cheshire, but I would attend that small group most weeks. I didn't really say anything, still really didn't believe any of it, and would just throw in the odd kind of devil's advocate comment. But I did go most weeks. Fast forward a few months, I think the diplomatic way of saying it is that relationship with my girlfriend at the time ended. The bit that makes it less diplomatic is I didn't see it coming. So it was pretty sudden, and my whole world fell apart, really. I didn't really know what to do. I had nothing to do at weekends, and I was completely heartbroken. So because I then had nothing to do and was in a room and had no friends, nothing to do at a weekend, I thought, well, I may as well go back to that church because otherwise I'm just going to sit here and be miserable all day. So I went to the church and started to attend that church a bit more regularly. And to then cut a kind of long story quite short, there was one particular evening service where I just fell apart, largely. I was completely broken. I didn't know what to do. And I was sat there in tears. And for probably only, I'd say 2 or 3 times in my life, I heard a really audible voice, which probably no surprise as I'm stood here today, I believe that was God. And he just said, "Don't worry, I've got you." So despite all of those things I've been doing over the years, all of those kind of actions, those choices, those things that I'd been doing, which with my background I knew were wrong because I'd kind of been taught that they were wrong, God still wanted me to come back. He had never stopped looking for me and had never stopped loving me. And as we read in the passage, he would welcome me back and celebrate and have a party. But despite knowing all that, I really struggled with it because I knew that I had made deliberate choices in the face of everything that I knew to be right, to hurt somebody who was willing to put their son on a cross to die for me. And I didn't deserve that love. I didn't deserve that. All these things I'd done were my choice, and I knew that they were wrong, and yet I still decided to do them. And I battled with that guilt for quite a while, to be honest. I really struggled, and because I was struggling, I kept doing the same stupid things over and over again, even though I'd kind of realised that God was real. I couldn't work it through in my head. And eventually I accepted that Jesus' grace did extend to me. That was the whole point of it. And he accepted me with all of my faults and all of my issues. In the same way as at the start of the parable we read today, when Jesus was talking to the sinners, Jesus came to meet me where I was. And then through his power, he began to transform me and change me. And he did that from the inside, and then over time, as I accepted it, I started to change. Because Christianity is about being in a relationship with Christ. He invites us to know him. He invites us all into that relationship with him, wherever we are today. And he will search for us, and he will come looking for us if we are lost. Each one of us is created in God's image. Every single one of us is as valuable and as precious to him. And we are all loved equally. He just wants us to come home. And we just have to be willing to accept him and allow him into our lives in order to do that. We're gonna sing it again now, and I love this next song. I really, really love the lyrics of it. It's called Reckless Love. I can't remember if it's the verse or the chorus actually, but it just says, "Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. It chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. The overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God."
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me.
We're coming towards the end of our service now, but we're going to spend the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes in prayer, and this is going to involve you all getting up out of your seats. Stu, it might involve you getting up quicker, because can you hand some post-its around or get someone to help you? So obviously the hurdles have already been commented on, and they've not yet been involved in the service. They do have a purpose. I didn't just bring them for a prop. In essence, a hurdle is supposed to be a barrier. I know perhaps sheep farmers around may say they don't always act as a barrier, but in essence, they are a barrier. So as we've heard in the passage and through kind of the songs and through the service, I want us to break those barriers down this morning and offer our prayers up to God. So post-its are coming around. Hopefully you've got pens from earlier, or try and grab a pen from somewhere. And this morning I want us to write our prayers down, or draw them, or whatever way you kind of want to articulate a prayer onto these hurdles, and then come and stick them on. I'm not sure if post-its will stick, so I do have some masking tape as well, just in case the post-its all fall off. But there's a few pointers, if you could just put the next slide up, please. We'll keep this one up. We're going to play a couple of songs in the background just as we work through this. But in particular, there's just some kind of points there to think of. So what are the barriers that are stopping us telling us about God? So what are the things that might be stopping us from going out there and talking about him? What are the things that are perhaps stopping us from feeling close or feeling loved by God? What are those things that we can think of this morning? That doesn't make sense. Barriers stopping us. I missed an S out. Barriers stopping us giving all areas of our life to him. So whether the large parts we can give to him, but kind of finance, we can't do that because that's us, or work or something. Is there some area of our life that we can't give over? Think of someone or some people we know that are lost, that need Jesus in their life, or need kind of a realignment like I did. And let's write those down this morning. You don't have to answer all of them, just whatever prayers come to your mind on the post-its, so say write or draw, however, and come and put them on here. And if none of those make any sense, or you can't think of them, or if you've got young kids and that's a bit complicated, just put something down that you're thankful for, or that you're worried about. And let's just bring our prayers to God. We'll put them here. There was a cross strategically placed, but then it fell over. So we've slightly moved it. But we'll come and put them on these hurdles this morning. We'll leave them at the foot of the cross. And we're just symbolising that we're handing these things to God, and we're letting him come in and deal with them and answer our prayers. So if we can just put those songs on in the background if it works. And we've got about 10 minutes to do this. There's a couple of songs.
Between us, by the cross you came and broke them down. You broke them down. And there were chains around us. By your grace we are no longer bound. No longer bound. You called me out of the grave. You called me into the light. You called my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. So feel the darkness shaking, all the dead are coming back to life, oh back to life. Hear the song awaken, all creation singing we're alive, 'cause you're alive. You called me out of the grave, you called me into the light, you called my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Oh, and what, oh love we found, death can't hold us down. Shout it out, we're alive, 'cause you're alive. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love awakens me. Oh, your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Father, we thank you for the time we've had together this morning. We thank you that we can share together. We thank you that we can bring our prayers to you, that we can leave them here at the foot of the cross, that we can offer them up to you for you to come into our lives and to help transform us and to help us to show your love to those that we come across through the coming days and the coming weeks. Amen. So we're going to sing our final hymn now, but just before we do, if anybody has any other prayer requests, don't leave here this morning without being prayed for. I'd love to pray for you. I'm sure Stu would, anybody who's leading or whoever you've come with. Just don't leave here this morning if you want prayer and you haven't had it. But our final song this morning is There Is a Redeemer.
Holy One,
Thank you, Rob, for coming and speaking this morning, and thank you for sharing your testimony with us all. There's probably lots of us where we've got our own sort of stories or testimonies, isn't there, of how we've maybe not felt as close as we should do to God. And just to reiterate, where if that is you this morning and you feel that you're struggling with things or you want to feel closer, then please talk to myself or Rob, or I'm sure there's lots of other people in the church. We'd like to talk to you, to pray with you, to help you through. Let's just close in prayer. Lord, we know there's always going to be hurdles in our lives, Lord. But we thank you that you're there to help us overcome them, to lift us over, Lord, and to carry us through those troubled times. Help us to be brave enough, Lord, to take hold of your hand and to let you guide us and lead us where we should be going in our lives, Lord. We just pray as we all head off in our different directions, Lord, this morning, that you'll be with us as we go through this week, Lord, and that we can remember to spend time with you, Lord, to pray to you, Lord, and to commit our lives to you. Amen.